All right, there
Oh,
you go.
nice.
Hello, hello, my brothers. Jcast, so great to see all of you again. Today, we have a very special episode to kick off what is going to be a very special series on the background dancer. And this is going to be the first time that both your voices are going to be featured on the platform. Usually, we're on, and if that is a place that you haven't checked out, definitely. But it's wonderful to have both of you to come in here today. And we're going to talk really recent, but also very significant in our lives. And the way that we've titled this episode is Dance and Injuries, right? Now, I'm going to preface this by saying it's not the only thing in our tracks, but it definitely is one of the few things that that's just kind of laid around.
Correct.
But before we begin, guys, just say a little bit like, how are you boys? Like, how are you guys? Like, really quickly, like, what has been going on last, let's say, 1 month?
Limited to that.
Yeah.
We'll go with Jacob. Yeah, Jacob's like, let's go.
So, right, you saw me getting wound up here. I was like, all right, okay, July.
Just July. Just July.
Okay, awesome. Just as a little introduction for myself, my name is Jacob Caldwell. I'm the founder of All House Dance Collective. I am also the director, instructor, and pretty much the sole person of the Performing Arts Department for Vista Del Mar Child and Family Services over here in Los Angeles, California. It's sunnier than ever because it's July. So this last month has been quite intense. Our collective has been creating a whole schedule moving forward for the rest of the year, planning new festivals, providing accessible dance classes. And aside from that, my wife and I are looking for a new home and a puppy. It has been
Whoa.
quite a journey. And just as Jason was saying, I think it's so fun because we always get to hop on and off of social media throughout our day. And I was just to my supervisor yesterday in our meeting talking about how everyone in this little community of dance somewhere in the world is doing something massive and large. And you know me, little kiddos having a good old time. And yeah, it's just been great. I just finished my first ever summer session ESY, and I had each class make a movie, and so now I'm editing
Oh,
videos. It's
wow.
been a great summer thus far. Over to you, Josh.
Amazing. A lot, as you said
Go ahead.
correctly, I think there are so many things, big waves happening in within just the three of us too, like amazing things happening in three parts of the world. So
Yeah.
always nice to check in, check out, and be a part of that loop. And before I go on, I'm Joshua Silo. I'm a dancer, performer, choreographer, and recently I've started illustrating as well. I run Sail Away. It's a little company that I've started here. You can check out my website on www.sailaway.com to check out all my creative endeavors. And I'm also a part of a collective in Bangalore, in India, called the 206 Dance Collective. And we've been working hard to change the industry standards and bring more sustainability to within the dance industry. And tonight, turn from Europe was the work in progress sharing of our most recent 206 Dance Collective venture, choreographed by Ainesh Madan, and it's a work on MF Doom, kind of like a tribute. So excited to come home right
Yes.
away and see that. And the past month, July, what have I been up to? So I just finished a performance in Paris at Théâtre de la Ville as part of Danse à la Gie, which was great. It's a space that I never thought I would perform in, and I got to share that with a dear friend of mine, Surjit Nongme Kapam, who's also from the northeast of India, along with many dancers that I've seen train or who have attended my workshops over the past 7 years of going back and forth through Imphal. So it was just such a special moment for me to be able to share such a big world stage with these people who I've seen grow in my classes, in fact. So it was really, really special for me. And yesterday, a dance film that we made earlier this year called East of Eden, which explores a little bit on gender performativity, and also where do morals come from, and do we really allow ourselves to enjoy and have pleasure in our lives and choices. So that film was part of the official selection of Bangalore Queer Film Festival, and it premiered yesterday on screen. So that's
Yeah.
about it. And to close it all off, I know we're talking about dance at Versities a little bit. I've kind of faced a little bit of that. So parts of July as well was just resting and recovering with friends in Europe. So after the show, of course. So that's been really special to really take that time for myself.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Now, this is really timely because, as you said, I think the reason why I pointed out July was because before you took off, some really dramatic stuff happened. Jacob had something dramatic prior to these couple of months that you've shared with me as well, and very also significantly traumatic moment as I think early as May, leading up to June and all that. So we're gonna unwrap everything as we go, and it promises to be a wonderful this episode because it's really just the combination of all of. But light at the end of the tunnel, we're gonna speak about how we also overcame or are overcoming all these things. So I will still, I think, it's nice to kind of say this is done. It's basically dance and adversity. uh, I guess we'll see what's at the end. Gonna title this episode, but we're gonna start off. Let's start off with a really simple, just let's say, description of some of the worst adversities we've actually experienced, right? And it could be something that happened a long time ago. It could be something that happened a couple of months ago. Whatever you may, however it ranks in your experiences and memories. But let's talk about some of the worst adversities you've had, and
Yeah.
with that particularly, um, it could be physical, even mental, even a psychological one. So you go ahead and describe that, okay? Let's start with Jacob here, because I know that there were some interesting and very interesting examples that you actually could be coming up with. So go ahead.
So, yeah, when I first thought about injuries, back to this moment in time quite often, but I'd like to revisit my time in Paris because we were just on that topic, as well as that's when I experienced my first ever dance injury. So when I first met you, Jason, back summer, we were in Ponte, northeastern area or borough, really, or district, really, of Paris, the arrondissement. And when I was in the middle of our camping workshop series, which I believe it was the first week, I had a workshop with Damian Jallet, and he was doing a very interesting floor exercise and technique that really was working off of flow and maximizing the potential a dancer can have using the surface area of the floor, but also of their own body connecting to the floor. And how can we take that to an elevated? What would that look like being affected by gravity, being pulled in some sort of angular direction versus gravity just forcing us onto the. At that time, I'd only been dancing for about 3 years. If I had anything in my body that was skill, it would have, but I didn't. So, how does overcompensate for that? Well, the best thing that my body knows, like how the best approach my body has in taking on anything that I am well unequipped for is just more energy. That was very much a concept that as a dancer, I didn't understand what I was doing to my body throughout that week. My max potential, right? I thought, well, if I just beat my body up as hard as I can, maybe just by the end of this, I'll have something. And had more than just something. I had the knowledge why I should my full potential. I had a wild series. It was almost like I had my own special belt of bruises around my hip and waistline because that was that's center point on the floor as a newer dancer. A lot of the connection was coming from my hips, and I wasn't aware of my head, my chest, my back, my arms, my legs, my feet, and just a hurt ego. That's just the short end of what that experience was. And through that, as I take on new challenges and experiences within the dance world, that is an event of my life that influences how I approach
Mhm.
new techniques, workshops, classes, because my primal instinct is to just give more, just try more. However, that negatively affected my experience because I was just in pain for the remainder of that workshop week.
A is a bruised entirety of your body and your existence, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that
I was
example. It's
walking
like
around.
bruised ego. Ah, okay. I mean, I've had
I
that
loved
one.
how
That
you,
really hurts.
yes. I love how you unpacked that story and structured it and set it up for that point. And
Such
I
a
think something
suspense,
that
right?
Jacob, yeah, I know Jacob missed to say today in his
Such a
introduction is he's a
storyteller. Yeah,
storyteller.
he's a
Exactly.
real
I was just like,
storyteller.
I'm on board this story and like
So
with you
bloody
all the
intriguing.
way.
Well, let me tell you too. I just I felt like that one small moment. It was so remedial in its own sense of what it was doing for me at the time, but the long lasting influence that injury slash adversity that I experienced teaching and my dancing has been exponential. And I learned about the amazing wonders of arnica. You guys know about
Oh,
arnica?
Yes.
yeah,
Oh my
absolutely.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That saved the day. I was like, okay, in Paris, where's the nearest like urgent care? I was looking for red crosses. I kept seeing these little green plus signs, and I was like, that's medical marijuana. That's not there. Because I'm in the US, right? And then
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like, oh, okay, that's not even legal over here, right? Great, okay, I'm the dumb one. So then I found arnica, and it's a lifesaver. Let me tell you, if you're a dancer,
Mm,
Bruce, that stuff works wonders.
I always
mm.
travel with one.
No
Always.
doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, arnica. Arnica's really the thing. I only found out about it. It's quite trendy here in Europe. I think maybe because they produce it here or something like that. Yeah, but
Mm.
it saves lives. All right, Joshua. Thank you for that, Jacob. Joshua, what were some of your worst injuries or adversities? And yeah, I think let's add this. How did that happen? So tell your story.
Yeah. Hard to pick, but I will go with the one that's most recent just because of the nature of the injury. And before I get into that, I have had quite significantly big or traumatic experiences with injuries, but they have always been caused by external factors. It's not done by me or because of me. It's really accidents. And to briefly talk about it, I met with a motorbike accident 3 years ago now in 2019, where a drunk driver veered onto the wrong side of the road and crashed head on with me while I was on a motorbike. And that I still got the scars to prove it. And that took me out of the game for about 6 months with a long process of recovery. And then it was not until last year that I fully recovered, my whole system, digestive systems, and all of that. And that really taught me to, listen to the body more, because suddenly you only think about muscles or external things, but now I have to take care of my organs. How are my stomach, my gut, my lungs, how are they functioning? So it really changed how I view the body and how my process of training or preparing for anything. So I really took it. The lesson that I learned from that is to pause often and take moments to listen to your body. Yeah, you can know you're tired, but you feel you're tired before you have to know it. So I've really structured, or I thought I did, I really structured like a sustainable career path, and that's what I've been trying to transmit and teach to the younger generation that I happen to train with, or even to the my friends and colleagues. Every time I'm in rehearsal, I'm like, okay, we've hit this limit, let's rest. So that's something that I really took out of that experience, is listening and taking care of the body and going in time.
Mm.
And the injury that I have now, a few weeks ago, why we couldn't meet in our last clubhouse session, was that I got an injury on my knee. And this time, of course, the trigger was a motorbike little scuffle because Indian traffic is crazy. But the more I think about it, I don't think it was solely from that, because the impact was not that great. It's just that I came home and my knee was swollen like a watermelon. And it looks
Wow.
strange because it was just oversized. And I don't know how it grew so much within a few minutes of me getting home, and I didn't notice it grow or bruise at all. So that really shocked me, and turns out my ligament is sprained, my MCL. And when I think about it, it's just that the past few months, as Jason said earlier, I've had so much going on with multiple rehearsals, multiple projects, shows during the day, rehearsals at night, or other things. And all this time, I thought I was taking care of myself because of my previous lessons on, you know, okay, I've got to take time. Okay, I'll rest in the evening. Okay, I'll stretch. I'll do this. I'll meditate. All of this. But there was a lot of doing and resting, but not allowing time for recovery. So when
Mm.
this injury happened, I suddenly felt the most shock to my core as and my identity as a dancer, because I got injured despite the fact that I thought I was a sustainable dancer. I thought I was, resting and taking care of myself well, and I thought I was creating this whole ethos around me of how I want to work. Yet I still got injured. What does that mean? What is this some is was I overworking myself? So it really shocked me to the core itself. So I think for me, this recent injury is really a lesson on, am I giving time to myself to recover instead of just resting? What is rest and what is recovery? Trying to differentiate the two. And already I see, when I'm looking back at the last 3 months, I really feel like I didn't have weekends, because on weekends I would do management roles, because as freelancers, that's part of the job. So, yeah, maybe I'm not dancing in the studio or performing on stage, but am I mentally resting as well? So, these were all the questions that came up. And these were more what I've shared so far is more the intellect, or the identity crisis that it brought up. But physically too, I suddenly can't dance. And that is a real like hard stop, hard hitting
Scary.
experience, because suddenly, my whole day is structured around movement. Even if it's not a lot, I wake up, I like to do some meditation or some easy like cheap practice or something, Or and when I feel really stiff, I can't really stretch and bend my knee, because I've been advised not to flex or my knee too much. So what do you do to release? What do you do to like lubricate the joints? I was suddenly at such a loss on how to take care of my body, because I can't go through any of these things that I used to rely on. And also, my immediate thought was also, oh no, how many projects do I have to cancel because of this?
Mm.
That's the thing that starts racing too, is like, oh no, I can't do this, gotta cancel this intensive that I'm supposed to teach, oh, can't perform there. And as a freelance dancer, who it's so hard to design and structure the ideal career, or lining it up. And that's something I've been really excited about this year, is the design of my timeline and schedule of work, and that's been totally disrupted too. So physically, work wise, all of this have really shocked me. So I'm still in the process, I would say, of handling this. So the takeaway, I don't know what it's going to be yet, but for now, definitely it is include time for recovery. And immediately the change that I've been implementing is, one, there's a rehearsal that I get to direct, and a huge project that I'm the main rehearsal director choreographer for 10 dancers in India. In the timeline, as I'm negotiating budget, as I'm negotiating timeline, I'm like, when are we putting in rest? It's in the middle, they're getting paid, and the like investors, like the
Mm,
funders and producers are like, what, la da da, timeline, it's getting stretched. I'm like, I don't care. Like, this is what
mm,
we're implementing. So I'm starting to push for this change, like assigned rest, not just the weekends. Because what are dancers gonna do? Pick up other projects to fill in the time. So I'm like,
yep, yep.
no. So I'm trying to bring that in for now, but I think I'm still processing it all, how to handle it, what my daily routine is gonna be. I don't know yet, but for
Mm,
now, immediately what I've done is allowed myself to let go of past commitments and just be like, give yourself the time you need to rest and recover. So I just got back to India this morning,
mm,
and the next few weeks are for myself to just rest. So
Yay!
mm.
Oh,
let's
Okay,
hope
yay!
my
That's
knee
awesome.
heals.
Salute to
that is
you,
wonderful.
soldier.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for that, Joshua. Yeah, it's okay. So you brought up a few points already, namely how you have been approaching this injury and how you have been sort of treating it, right? Like that's the most important thing. Like it's already kind of a rehabilitative process for you. It's quite personal, but when we say rehab, like usually most of the time we kind of refer to the actual going to the physios and all that kind of sort. But you have already started your own sort of rehabilitative process. We'll get into that a little bit more later on. And I just want to bring in my example a little bit here to tie everyone's up. Mine's a little bit actually similar to yours in terms of the damaged areas. The only difference is that, I mean, I did it completely on my own. So this is really on my own. And it happened during a performance. I've done this trick 1,000 times, nothing happened. But I think that day was because it was so many people there. It was during a little festival, and I was just like adrenaline loaded. I jumped super high, higher than I've ever done in my entire. And I came down, same trick done 1,000 times, but this time I put so much weight on one knee that it kind of cracked, right? So it cracked, went out, went in. Couldn't move immediately. Like I was hobbling right
Oh,
after, had to crawl off stage halfway. Never done that in my whole life. Never had to quit a performance halfway through. And it was probably my favorite show at the time. It was one of our newest premieres. It was such a cool show, just full on punk, crazy, awesome stuff. And then boom, this happened.
Yes.
So the funny thing was, the first time when it happened, the first thing I thought about was, I mean, being somebody who follows sports and dance, and I have a lot of fallen comrades already, around me at the time, people who have already gone through really bad stuff. And one of the ones that really stuck out was the potential of an ACL damage. So an ACL,
Right.
as we all know, anterior cruciate ligament, right? Like that thing is horrible. If you snap that shit, that's
You're
gonna
done.
that's gonna that's gonna you're done. You're done. You're literally
Yeah.
done. Requires at least a whole years of rehabilitation. You're gonna do something called an ACL reconstruction, where you have to have a graft, right? Take something out from your hamstring or your back, and that is just horrible. I've had friends already suffering from that fate. I've had a friend who did it twice. Had a reconstruction, broke the same one, and then had another one. That's crazy.
Oh,
So
that's
that's insane,
terrible.
right? Like that was the first thought
that
that came to my
sucks.
mind. Like I cracked it so badly. I
Cringe.
was like, it's cringy. I was looking at my knee. I was like,
Oh,
Jesus, like is that gonna work after this? So it was really funny because right after I cracked it, I could still kind of like hobble on it, and I immediately kind of like kicked it so hard that I kind of cracked it back in some ways. It was weird. So it was really cringy stuff.
Nice.
Listeners, I'm so sorry. This is
that's like
really
childhood methodology. Oh,
yeah.
I broke this toy. It fell this way. Let me drop it the other
Yeah,
way.
let me crack it back.
Why
Probably wasn't a
recover
great
when we can
idea.
prevent recovery? Snap it all
Exactly. Right?
together.
Crack it back. I was like, I felt a little better, but then I went back to work. So long story short, MRI came back, and yeah, so torn meniscus, ruptured MCL, and ruptured ACL. So question was, how badly ruptured leg. So the meniscus was complete, but the ACL actually was minorly ruptured. So the only way to truly find out, and this is for science, junkies and all that, is that MRI scans are not conclusive. They only tell part of the story,
Right.
right? Because it's a machine trying to look into your bodily fluids. So I had to see three different doctors: a traumatologist who looks at injuries, an ex-orthopedic, now general practitioner, and an actual orthopedic. Three different opinions, and all of them had said operation is the only way to go. I think that's a very Western mindset. But with all the research and all that, yeah, operation.
Right.
Did my operation. To do this operation, this is really good information because I had no idea about this in the first place. I learned this because is that we have really cool technology right now. I'm not sure whether you guys know about this. Do you know what a knee arthroscope?
No, enlighten
Well,
us.
It
okay,
sounds like
so I'll
a knee pod. I don't know. That's such a
get
cool
as
word.
scientifically geeky as you can. Yeah. So yeah,
Yes.
this was my exact same reaction when okay, you have to go for an operation. I was like, that was the one thing I didn't want to go, right? Because I've heard a lot of things about operations and they're just not really nice. Go under anesthesia, you have to have your knee cut out, and who knows who's gonna drop shit into your knee. Like, okay. That was my first reaction. And my doctor's like, calm down, don't worry about it. It's gonna be a small one. It's called an arthroscopy. I was like, what the heck is that? We have modern technology right now that if you don't require something like an ACL reconstruction, for example, so a torn meniscus, a lot of people suffer the same thing, is what you can do is you can either pull back the meniscus, the damage area, or you can shave it off so that it can grow again. But to have those flappy bit damage stay there, it's not a very good thing because it could actually block the recovery channel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be a problem. Now, arthritis could be a potentiality. Now, an arthroscopy is this: you have
Wow.
they don't have to open your knee up. Two rods that are sharp at tuck it into two parts of your knee and like basically poke it in like two chopsticks. And at the end of each rod is a camera, right? A really cool. And what they do is because they don't open your knee, they stuck it in and they basically do the whole procedure stand. So they basically stare at a monitor and fix your knee from those two rods. Crazy. Now,
That
the
is
reason why they had to
awesome.
do this, that's really awesome. The reason why they had to do this is because only by virtue of that little technology could they really see how bad the ACL was ruptured. And that was really the whole point of the operation, was to see how bad that was and to see if I had to go to the second one or
Reconstruction.
spot to do the reconstruction there and then. Because
Right.
like some of my other friends who fate, they knew from the get-go that they had to do reconstruction. From the get-go, they knew it was
Right.
snapped, and ACL. I think the MRI is already concluded. It's done. You gotta do it. There's no other way. I've heard people who have never done it as well, actually, who have snapped it off and just did not require or did not choose to go for surgery, but most of them did. So the inclusive, you got to do the small one to see whether you need the big one. Thankfully, after the operation, 40 minutes, doctor says the first thing says you don't need it because we tried it out, and this is really I'll get cringy just to make it more interesting again. When you're asleep under anesthesia, what they do is that they will tug at your ligament. Literally, they have a hook and they'll go to your ligament and they'll tug your bloody ligament while you're asleep and you're completely knocked out. They'll pull your leg here and there, and just to make sure that ligament actually holds. Because if it doesn't, it's gonna snap, right? So all that shit is happening while you're asleep, and it's like really cringy stuff. Because imagine that, like that guy's like literally going to your ligament and just tugging that thing. So I had to do like double checking over and over again, and eventually it turns out that I don't need the ACL reconstruction, which is a blessing because a potential 1 year break has been cut down to like 3 months. So that was my recent thing, and this is the first. This was actually the first massive injury I've ever had. I've had small ones. I had a tendonitis a couple of years ago, and basically what that is, it's a wearing off of cartilage in your knee, that you can only replenish if you rest and you eat a lot of this kind of stuff, like the collagens and all that kind of stuff. But this one, okay, so this was horrible because literally I couldn't dance right after that. 3 months, 4 months, and I'm lucky enough, and this is really interesting because comparatively to Joshua, like for a company that is on a full-time basis. I was rest. So basically, since the injury, the only thing I had to do was just rest. Like, couldn't do anything. Rest until you can, and do and start your rehab. Rehab, I mean, like really specified programs to do all those,
Right.
what we call, what do you call it? I forgot what you call it, but yeah, isocentric or whatever you call it. But
Physical therapy?
basically, physical therapy, just contractions of your muscles, basically rebuilding the strength and
Yeah.
your
Like electron
stability
therapy.
and all that sort. Yeah. So I have to go through all of that, and thankfully I had insurance because of the company to cover all these things. What I suffered really was, yeah, like, okay, is the knee that strong? I'm not sure. How is it going to be as strong as it used to be? And something we're going to touch on later, psychological aspect of it, right? So with that being said, I think it's wonderful to segue into our next section here. All these things that we've experienced, how did we treat them? I know Joshua already pointed out a little bit about it, but let's go back to Jacob here. And how did you actually treat them? I want to bring up a different example. How did you treat that adversity?
Well, as I was sort of staying, I used arnica. I used I think it said it was huile or like huile dupa. It's like a botanical oil, like another type, right? I don't even know. I don't know my French.
That was so
good. You know how Americans like to do other people.
Shit like that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, even if these malt, like, word, like I just wow. So yes, I used arnica. As I was going through that week's process, I thought I was able to somehow condition myself for the following week so that I may even return to practicing that technique or styling. But yeah, just a lot of rest, oils, and also lots of stretching and using of my knuckles to break down all of the stopped blood flow, really, just to help break up everything, to help things continue to move. And that was really beautiful because as to how much I used my hips in dance and how much I need to take care of them. Because usually at that point, I'm concerned about your arms, legs. But at that point, I really how much really focus on your core and how a lot of it does come or from your feet, either from the center or from extenuating features. So I really was trying to understand body pieces that like I needed to coordinate together in that to all work for the isn't so much pain. It was hard for me to sleep. I couldn't walk around. But I wasn't just the injury itself. It was my like approach to my dance. And so now something that always brings me back like a grounding state before performing that really helps me breathing exercises, focusing on the breath to keep myself concentrated and comfortable and not having to rush or push myself is super important because my anxiety or my fears when I'm performing or rehearsing or any, let's say, subconscious I'm having to overcome affect breathing mostly. And throughout, I was doing a lot of really hard movement and not breathing enough, allowing myself to the breath and with the movement as well. Using that going forward, and then this, I can actually confidence and comfortable just because I am focusing on how I'm using my breath and although that's not necessarily concept, it was for me at that time. And as a new dancer, that's something that I have taken with me up until now that I share with all new dancers. is to focus on your breath and how are you using your breath, because a lot of people think of it as what you see on the body but not what's sort of like what Joshua was talking about with your systems, right? Because we don't have this, we wouldn't be able to have this body, move this body if we weren't breathing. And we're not really moving our body to its full maximum potential. So that's how I treated that. And then overall, as a segue into the idea, which is just to kind of cover both topics, prevention is better than recovery always. And that's how I prevent my injuries, is a lot of forethought rather than just diving back into it. So this is very elementary in concept. It is something everywhere.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that, Jacob. It's always really challenging for a new dancer to kind of get in tune with his whole body, right? Like, especially into your career at the time you're already experiencing like that, and in most importantly, like in a foreign land as well, like that disconcerting, right? Like it really throws you off when you have an injury in a place that you don't know where to.
Yeah, and it's the setup too.
Aspect of it. So let's roll over to Joshua.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say it's the setup.
Let's hear your side of the story and how that kind of relates. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think it's the setup too, especially as a young dancer, as Jacob said earlier. Sometimes people's strategy to deal with challenges within the dance world is to add more energy, because that's the ecosystem we're in of more is better. We have to impress this choreographer. We have to, stand out, and that's the standard. And we talk so little about strategizing. Sometimes it's okay to go to the back, watch, observe, find, or even identify who amongst the dancers is doing this really well. Just watch and observe their execution. Pausing is something we do so little. There's this romanticism of hard work and just keep it going. And I think that's such a key, valuable thing that you've shared, Jacob, and just pausing, breathing, checking in, and really kind of tuning in to ourselves and having an embodied experience, not just from a ambitious place. So
absolutely. And on the idea of taking your moment to go to the back and observe the class. A lot of people do not do that. They think they need to get closer to the choreographer or to the but other people who around you see how this technique on other bodies and what's working for some others, and also talk to them if you have the chance to, because I don't know if I've stated this, but this is actually the link of what I've mentioned previously in our episodes of me being amazed by Cindy. Everybody from H Kappa that came to so talented, and no, seriously. And I remember just sitting there.
I agree. Everyone I've met from H Kappa.
Yeah, straight up. I was like, oh, okay, this is where I'm at, tight. And as you said, because requires energy, and the culture is, it's easy for a very beginner dancer to think, oh, the more energy I give, the better. But that's almost hardly ever the case. Especially upon where you're at. Usually someone give me their full energy up until like we're actually rehearsing everything. We've learned it. We know. But now we're like at dress rehearsal. Give me your full, or unless you're really trying to see where your maximum is. There's so many different reasons why you would want full. Having something full out is almost only necessary, maybe that creating a creative process or the rehearsal process. I personally would say that's just off of my own perspective. I even had fellow dancers within the industry. If you're not practicing at 100%, how can you receive 100%? Which is a philosophy that I don't necessarily agree with.
I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you brought it up. The whole philosophical, there's a difference, right? The philosophical and application of the 100% mentality.
Right.
I'm very much the 100% mentality guy. I think most of us are when it comes to like
Mhm.
pursuing a career as difficult as dancers, because if you don't give your 100%, then others are going to give 1,000%, right? However, it's really nice that you brought it
Mhm.
up. Like the physicality, the physical capacity of somebody at a 100% level cannot be 100% all the time. Like it's always up and down. It's always choosing the right moments to be
Right. It's not
100%
sustainable.
at, and then other times, exactly. There's always a sort of like a crescendo kind of thing. Like there's a up and down. There's a wave, right? There's a wave to it. A little bit like what are some of the maybe approaches or methods that you use to kind of like that breathing maybe, because I think breathing is so
Mm.
important, especially when it comes. Do you do yoga? Do you do like really like normal physical therapy, or what do you
So
actually
there
seek?
are classes and workshops I've partaken in that are just solely focused on breath work. Really, what size of breath are you taking it at? Are you holding your breath? Your breath to release or to absorb? There's so many different techniques with it, but I think for myself, I usually try and ask students to move through their own breathing at what they believe is appropriate. And then, yeah, then I say, okay, let's breathe on beat then. So every you're gonna inhale, and then every 2 beats you're gonna exhale, and they're gonna be like, "That's a lot of breathing." Like, that's a lot of breathing. Okay, well then, how do we dial that back? Is it a breath every 4 beats then? Let's say if we're doing like a social dance, something that I know is also partaking in professionally, right? Like, let's say like social Latin dance, right? Like, are you breathing on a rock step, or are you breathing on a turning step? Are you breathing with your partner, against your partner? And that can even go on to something as a larger choreography. And it changes too with regard to the medium that you are using to demonstrate, or how should I say, illuminate the dance. Dance on the stage, breath is going to look a lot different than it would be on film, because I know you just had a film premiere recently, right? Your breath and your facial features are going to be a higher level on film than they would be because of the distance from the audience to the performance. But I think it's important to understand and learn the different types of breaths and the different ways you can use your breath to an advantage, other than just functionality of I just need oxygen. A lot of people think of the breath as this is just involuntary working system, but use our breath and our respiratory system in a different way, add and improve our dance and performance, or visual I guess what we might be trying to achieve in the dance. For I think having
Mm,
your breath be used for different, I mean, like I was saying earlier too, right? A fast breath as an emotion brings anxiety. It gets everybody a little bit more adrenalized, right? Do that for yourself
yeah.
as well in the dance. Sometimes breathing through the nose versus through your mouth, that can help calm yourself in a dance and help center yourself and slow your heart rate. Um, and
Mm,
yeah, that's really how I've approached myself.
nice. I love
Love
that.
that.
Jacob, like
Once
what
again, it's about in the moment. I really like
that I mind
mapping it in some ways, imagining it,
uh going on stage
and
and
then kind of like okay, now's the moment. The lights are on.
all right take before
Where
you
you
actually
Yeah,
take your first step, right? All right.
and
Joshua, let's tie
absolutely. And
that.
I think that's it.
All right, go ahead.
Sorry,
Let's
I
take
was
this
just
in
saying
the
it's always a different personalities.
Go for
let's
it,
do
the
this
same with
Jason.
Joshua. How treat them, and how do you prevent
and the yeah
wonderful timing?
once again.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think I'm in the middle of the process, which is great. And something I do right away is, for me, in dealing with adversity, is get as much knowledge about it that you can, so that you can make the most educated not guess, but educated decision or choice in how you want to move forward. So even the night of, I when I saw my big, I said, I was about to panic and be like, what does this mean? Do I go to rehearsal tomorrow? What do I do now? Do I go straight to the hospital? All these things rushing. Oh, I have a call with Y dads, like Jacob and Jason, don't want to let them down either. What do I do? I just said, wait, don't do anything. Just drink water, have the dinner you were meant to. And I just said, pause, don't think about it. Just to like calm myself down so that I don't go from irrational decisions of or compromising somewhere. And that pause really helped because that's when, as you both know, I messaged saying, hey, I need to take this time. I'm just gonna go get it checked just to abate my fears. I knew that the way I would get calm is to know more about what is happening in my knee right now. And thank the doctor that night said he had some, of course he said rest, ice, this, that. Came home feeling better that a doctor gave me this, but the next day again I could not rest, knowing that how instrumental my body is for my career. It's not just this moment and sweating dies and I go about it. I didn't want to take that risk of going about it the moment the sweating dies. I think there's something deeper. So I just got uh, okay, throw back a little bit to dance and technology. So now there are apps where you can actually consult a doctor and they can write you the recommendation you need to go to get the prescription slip or allowance you need to get an MRI scan. So I just got myself downloaded this app, consulted a doctor and said, he also said probably rest, this, that. It's a minor stress. I said, but I need to know. This is my career. Can you write me a slip to go get an MRI done? I just kind of asked for it, and he gave me. Got it on my phone through the app.
Yes.
Went to the hospital right away and got the scan done. And thankfully, the scan showed that I had an MCL sprain, the first degree sprain. It's not too serious, and I, after that, following that result, I went to see an orthopedician at a hospital to go over it with me, see me in person. And he kind of gave me a lot of information why the swelling could suddenly happen. He said he wants to rule out all three, which is possibly arthritis, possibly something related to a flu because your joints can act up. And he's saying it's probably because almost an athlete. I mean, dancers are athletes. We're on it constantly, you know. So he said it's probably overuse and stress as well that got, irritated or accentuated by the recent events or the scuffle on the road that I had. So that was it. Next step was recovery, rest, ice, all that procedure. Said as much as I can. And here I just have to shout out and thank my colleagues and peers, people in my dance collective who just stepped in and said, don't panic, rest. Because, as people, I guess we always try to value others or not let people down, your collaborators. So I was like, oh, this rehearsal, I have to go. They said, we'll cover all of it. And the first thing that I did in procedure, like in my procedure of healing and rest, was saying that I pulling myself out of ongoing projects that I could. What was unnecessary or what could be covered by someone else, I pulled myself out, which meant that I think I shared it with the both of you, the dance that we were creating for young audiences with reimagining the story of Smeagol and the Hobbit. I couldn't do it. A friend had to step in and do it. I was on the outside, but still, that gave me more time to rest, recover, go to Paris. Even the performance in Paris, everyone was super open to reworking the choreography for me. So that put less pressure on me as well, And these were the immediate steps that I took was cancel, pull myself out, rest so that my body had time to rest and not put more stress on it. And after that, for now, because I was in Europe, I was traveling, I had a lot of other things. I basically did a lot of resting and swimming because I know swimming is good so that I don't want my muscles to go completely jelly either. Because when it comes to the knee, you have to strengthen everything around it to support the ligaments. like all the muscles, all everything you need. So, and building networks. I called up a friend who's a physio who I've worked with closely. I said, I'm here. I don't have access to physio right now. What can I do? So I just started designing a series of exercises, small exercises that I've been doing over the past few weeks, just so that I don't go completely jelly and have to start the process of strengthening from zero. That's something you don't want. Again, even from a physio or rehabilitation perspective, a lot of the times, this is for people listening, and if you might have injuries, people start physio or rehab when they think it's healed or something is done. The best thing is to start from day one so that you don't go through muscle deterioration or and you allow the fluidity or it's just healthier and you start from day one. So that's what I'm on right now. And coming back to India now, I plan to go see my doctor again this week and start my round of physio and rehabilitation from professionals in that field
Nice.
so that I can take care of myself. And moving forward, I think I shared this a little bit already is how can I really bring in time for recovery, not just rest. I some things you know, but do you actually make time and room for that? So that's a
Mm.
question I asked myself in rethinking and redesigning my projects that will resume later. I'm really asking myself, is it sustainable for the future? Does this put strain on a knee that's recovering? So I'm factoring all these details in, and I think I'm still figuring it out as well. But definitely something I really push for everyone is negotiate your terms, allow yourself, especially if you're not in a company and you have that liberty to be taken care of, have insurance and all of that. In all your contracts, is there room for you to have sick leave and still be covered for it so that you're not left in this dire situation? Can you negotiate health insurance? Can you negotiate for the project, for the duration of the project? So these are all things and conversations I'm having with my friends now. And one thing I did also is I hired a manager for myself and all the work that SailAway is doing so that I don't do everything on my own. So creating employment and just getting all the
Yeah,
help that I
buddy.
can. And it's been
I
great.
like
Let me
that.
just say, it's been
There you
great.
go. Sail away. Why?
That's I always think the concept of having to do rehab immediately after surgery. I had to do the same. You guys can see the gear that I have in my arm right here. I
Uh-huh.
have screws and plates and a whole bunch of fun mechanical gadgets in my elbow, and that's what I got my surgery the next day. And I thought that was, you guys just got into my arm outside of it. This is crazy. So yeah,
Yeah.
Mm,
I understand
yep.
what you're saying. It's super important because, especially with our joints too, the synovial elbows all the way down to the fluids that are near your patella and all of your ligaments and the meniscus. If you aren't using it enough, not only does your muscle deteriorate, but your body stops producing the important needs to be able to even move that joint. So
Mm,
interesting,
Exactly.
Josh.
Have we talked about it here? This analogy of we're like water and we're basically water. We need to keep
I
moving so it's fresh.
Yeah, I
And
don't think we have, but I like that concept.
probably
right?
not. Yeah.
Like even if you're like injured and you need to rest, it doesn't mean you become stale because that's when water becomes murky, it starts dying. You still need to move. It's like fresh water. We need to recycle, we need to let go. So I think movement, it's in us,
Absolutely.
and the fluids, the insides, not just outside physically what we do. We just
Mm.
need to do that. And exactly like what Jacob said, like with this hand injury, when I got the surgery, I started physio the day after. The friend who
Mm.
I called, actually, she came over and started it right away. I'm like, what to me? This is painful. She's like, you'll thank me later. I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
Mm,
Mid.
mm.
Yeah.
S- My side actually, like I woke up from my anesthesia. 10 minutes after that, I was still like, in a daze, right? Like, oh, it just happened. Like, oh my gosh. Doctor comes in, takes my knee out, and just starts pushing it up and down. I was screaming in pain. I was like, what the
doing? Holy shit.
It
That's
hurts like hell, you know, like what the heck? And knee's fine, totally fine. Okay. I'm like, wait a minute, like how could you do that to somebody who's just like fresh off operation? It hurt
Yup.
like crazy. And then I realized
Hmm.
right after my friend calls me like, hey, if you did it with a sports surgeon, by the way, they do it 1 hour after you finish surgery. 1 hour or like 1 hour or 1 day. I forgot what she said. Basically, worked immediately on your knee 1 hour after your surgery. I'm like, are you kidding me? I remember I
Jeez.
couldn't even move my leg or my knee for a good 1 week. Like a whole week, I couldn't even like. There was,
Was it
I think
really
the word
bruised post surgery?
yeah, I was terribly swollen up. I think the word we're looking for, because I was really fascinated by this. It's called muscle atrophy, where
Yeah.
you
Oh
lose
yes, yes.
all functions to the nerve endings or whatever crap. I
Atrophy.
couldn't even I basically couldn't activate my knee. I couldn't feel it. Like no matter how hard I tried, the muscles were not responding, and it felt like the knee was 100 tons. You know, like the whole leg was 100 tons. It was so heavy I couldn't move it almost a week where I could finally move it, twitch it a little bit, and then at the end of the week, I could actually put some weight on the knee itself to actually walk. But then I was like, doing all of this research, and I was like, wait, people actually start rehabbing 1 day after. Am I like, am I slow? Am I late on this? And that's the key. Actually, it kind of depends on some people react faster. Some people, some people's bodies respond quicker. Mine, I think, was lot slower. Like I didn't walk for a whole week, but then when I started doing my rehab and I intensified it, I improved dramatically quickly. Like it really it strengthened super fast. Like from like
Yeah.
2 days after that, I could already feel my knees like quite well. I was like, wait a minute. So um and we haven't even really talked a lot about the psychological aspect of this, right? So I'm just gonna add on with my injury because I think that was before the operation. I already knew that could have been the most challenging aspect of this all, right? I've had many friends of mine who go into rehabilitation basically for a good number of months, and that really toys with you in a way that is not very helpful. And sometimes, okay, you might have people come up to you and say, hey, come and see you, can we come and help you out? What happened to me was that I didn't want anyone to come. Like I was just so frustrated with everything that I just like I want my own space. I want to really figure out how am I going to respond to all of this. And thank God, I mean, it already happened before I got the injury, but during that time, like 1 week after post-op, actually on the day of post-op, I think a couple of days later, I had this massive project to do videos for an art festival, and I literally had to like put my leg up somewhere, face a diagonal as I record myself, and do that video with a
I saw
literally
that and
like
I was
post-op
like,
leg.
what is Jason?
Yeah.
He's some android. I was like, did he just come out of a surgery?
Yeah, that
I
was
felt the same
true.
thing for
I
you
just
too, Josh. Because sorry to cut you off, Jason. I remember. I don't know if this was post op. I just needed to. I was gonna save this for later, but I can ask now. There was one video I saw of you, which looked like a stick of bamboo, and you were just like spinning with it.
Yep, that was the
Was that
piece.
before
yeah,
or after you
yeah,
got injured?
No, that's after the injury, but that was I think 3 weeks after. I had lots of. I shouldn't say this. I took some painkillers, put on knee support, and I went on.
Hey, well, it's medicine, right? And I mean, it's
you
important
did the
Yeah,
right
because there are
thing though.
moments like
Yeah, you did the
that.
right thing.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That's when I saw that, I
You
was
need that
like,
stuff. Yeah, you totally need that stuff.
yeah.
yeah, and it's your
So
career
yeah,
too. And I mean,
Mm.
ultimately, it's
Okay,
there's so many benefits to using things to when you are on a time schedule, right?
yeah.
You're on a crunch.
yep, exactly, yep, absolutely. I the same thing.
My doctor,
They
they
prescribed me strong. It had
cannabis in it or something.
something like so strong, like literally once I've eaten
The painkiller.
like not feel a thing in my leg. Like, it was so great. And the doctors were actually
Wow.
recommending that to do physio. Like, take that to do physio. Then how would you know the real extent of your injury? Like,
Yeah.
no, that's not the whole point of it. The point of it is that you need to do the rehab, strengthen yourself, stabilize, whatever.
Yeah.
But you can't do it with the pain. There's no with the pain.
Yeah.
So I actually was taking
Right.
like pretty painkillers up to a point where I just refused to do it, because by the time I could actually, activate my knee properly, I just refused to take it, and I've been off that for at least 2 weeks now, like totally
Yeah.
off. Well, you did the right thing, I think, Joshua. Like, the knee brace for sure, that's going to come in. And once again, it's just the whole idea of like, how do you, from my side, the prevention of it is, okay, like, my mortality has been compromised. Now this is real. I've had this injury, like all of us have. Like, how am I gonna go forward with this? How am I going to change the way I dance? Really, I think that's the point. Like, psychologically speaking, when I come into a room, this whole 100% thing that I used to have, like, maybe it's gonna be adjusted a little bit, and just the whole idea of like, do I need to dance the way that I used to dance? A monkey prior to that injury. I was flying, jumping, sliding all over the place, and no regard of what dangers there could be. I mean, I've seen it, but you don't feel it until it happens to you. So for me, it was just like my entire system of what it means to be on stage, right? How I'm supposed to
Yeah.
approach dance, really works. So I've rehab. Every time someone brings it up, I was like, that's bull. That's real bull. With all the
Yeah.
electrotherapy, this, that, whatever,
Okay,
it's
you
bull.
mentioned this in our conversation earlier of
Yeah,
this your skepticism with rehab.
yeah.
Like, before you go on and finish that thought, what is it about rehab that you find so mumbo jumbo, or that you find it not working like before? Like, what was the
Yeah.
block you had, or the resistance you had to it?
Well, it kind of stems from my earlier athletic childhood, let's say teenage, adulthood, when I sustained a lot of minor injuries, and they were mostly centered around the ankle. I had really brittle ankles because I was a basketball player. And every single time we rehab, that's what they do. They put you on that thing, they electrolyte you, whatever, electrocute your thing, and then they do the gel thing, right? It just seems so passive for me. I think it's the problem with that area, that region. That's how they see therapy as. And if therapy, because I went to a couple of them, and that's it. And it just started
Some
electrocuting
gel
you. I'm
and
like,
rub this.
wait a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna magically reduce the swelling of some sort, and it has been like that all the time. I guess I just never had form of therapy until I came here, and I realized, like, okay, is it because the Westerners treat it completely different? Here it's all about like strengthen, stabilize, right? Like, do really simple contraction and release. I'm like, what? That's boring as hell. I thought, there has to be some other way, and I realized, yeah, all that skepticism really
That is the
came.
way.
Yeah, it's like, it's sort of an antithesis, is like a throw off from what we're used to, and that is, you need to work, you need to move it, you need to lubricate, you need to whatever it is. And when you can't do that, when you're absolutely at no capacity to do that, next best thing you can do is basically what rehab entails, which is just small, step by step, very gradual increases, right? Incremental improvement.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. I
Absolutely.
mean,
that
now
makes
I'm like,
sense.
now it's like Hail Mary. Yeah, rehab's great. Like,
Yeah.
do it. Let's do more.
No, that's great. I think you brought up such an important point, overall understanding of what rehab and recovery is sometimes, and also
Right.
within the industry, right? I think sports medicine is something that's growing now. And before, a lot of the times people think, okay, reduce inflammation, but not treat the symptoms or why this is happening, or try to
In the first place.
strengthen, or I don't know, rehabilitate around it, not just treat the symptom at the site. That gel is probably for anti-inflammatory gamma rays or whatever they're
Yeah.
shooting through. it's something to do with anti-inflammation because that's what they used to do when I had carpal tunnel because I used to play piano a lot. That's what they did when my ankles would, and I'm like, what is this? You're not doing anything. You're not mobilizing. You're not strengthening. You're not retraining the muscles. And it's only now. Okay, that makes sense on why you were resistant on rehabilitation. I was a little bit puzzled
Mm.
as to why would someone dancing training be resistant towards rehab when you do need to start almost from scratch on retraining the muscle pathways, the neuronal networks. And I was like a bit shocked, but that explains a lot. But yeah, I think this misconception is something that's so large and sometimes misdirected. But I'm glad like sports medicine is has taken up such a central role now and more discussions are happening around it. So I do
Right.
think we're headed the right way.
Mm. I mean, just to finish that point off, like one of the upcoming guests season 2 is basically the managing director of this place. But it's, I think, where is it in? California, San Francisco, forgot. Harkness Center for Dance Injuries. One of the only few places in the world that has a designated for a medical faculty treating dancer injuries and specific injuries. Not very different from sports injuries, but when during, oh my gosh, there is a whole lot of, actually a lot of differences. For example, because
Oh
This
yeah.
is fascinating.
need to like stretch the knees as much. If you're a ballerina, if you have a full stretch of your knee, you're done. That's it.
Yep.
So, right, like let's move into the
That's
next
great.
section. I
Yeah.
think this is my favorite part. Let's start off with Jacob. How has all these adversities like impacted we now see both our career and also the art form, right? And it can be any way. It can be any way at all. And I'm hoping it's positive because it's a
Yeah.
kind of question. But yeah, bring us through some of the things that you've adjusted.
Well, I think it's sort of like I was saying, my adversity and the way that I overcame it is really personality and my temperament, which is very much go, 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 give, 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 lots of energy, go at it. I think how this experience is really just impacting me psychologically. Also, not even so. I'd like to say holistically, it's just remind myself to slow down. Speed is something that has always perception of my body and my mind when it comes to how much the quality of what I produce. And this last year, I've really, even more so, have had to just slow down rather than do everything at once. And I think what's that in regards to that injury is that I had to slow down. I had no other choice. But before ever getting to a space or a position where I don't have a choice, I think it's important to strategize, as we were saying earlier, right? That you have and what would best suit you now versus later, short term versus long term. And listening, as Josh was saying. Aside from all of that, has excited me to be a dancer. I felt like I had a badge of honor, walking around and people were like, Damian Jaleh, and I was like, you know. And I was like, yes.
Initiation into the tribe of
That's
injured
right.
dancers.
Yeah. And just as a small little foot, and I had no idea that this Harkness Center even existed. And I'm looking into it right now. I had no idea. I think it's here in America.
I just remembered. It's in New York. It's a part of the Langan Health something. Yeah, so medical center or something like that. So it's part of a hospital, and
Yeah,
then
I'm excited
they
to listen
designated a
into
little
that.
corner.
So,
Yeah.
much fun. Yeah, I like I said, just that badge of honor is like, these hips are the first ones that will like I did the work, but these things lie. I'm not sure. Because I'm telling you, right?
Oh man, I love
I
your
was-
punch.
it was
Oh
just-
god. Okay.
Like, how else am I supposed to feel when I am like sitting there looking like a manatee or a dugong, like flailing on the ground, trying to form a sense of grace, and then to my right is just becoming vortex of wind, water, and the elements, and just absolutely. And it's so funny, but that moment in time logically impacted me in knowing that I was on a journey to be with dancers, and whether or not I am skilled, I am be amongst the ranks of those that are in higher academia, or those who have put in the time and effort and they were young. That was a moment of like truth for dance is for everyone, and that the community is inviting, and that it is something that can pursue. Because someone who had only been dancing 2 years at that time, dancing for 10, but being just for conversation and collaboration and teamwork and education for one another, impact, and why I'm even here today. You know, one small moment, and it was just one of those things where I think I actually, right after that first class, I got to witness the vortex herself, and then me like just trying to be some beautiful on a dance floor. You know, walked out of the Cateau Chaillot and just journaled for over an hour, I think, of what my thoughts were and how I perceived everything. And then I think quirky sketch of the Eiffel Tower, and then I think I went home and really just thought about, and something as small as that, and that I got to keep with, to think of what's important for the body outside of the dance studio or space, so on and so on. And taking care of our bodies.
Wow. Amen. Thank you for the journaling part though. I think, yeah, translating lived experiences into writing so that you can actually store it and then revisit it after a while, bring back a lot of memories, and it kind of also helps recalibrate yourself, right? Like a lot of people journaling your experiences, and maybe it doesn't have to be written, it can be like spoken, like what we're doing right now. It's also a little bit of like, but then having basically like this time traveling kind of understanding what you could have done. I mean, it's not like a sense of regret, but yes, it really helps educate what's to come next in the future, how it could be done better. And you have to be the scapegoat. You have to be the first one to actually experience it in order for other people to understand what's. So yeah, the journaling
that's such
part
a huge
is,
part of
I
the
think, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I mean the nostalgia behind it too.
And the psychological healing it brings, you know, part of injury is recovery, like emotionally as well, and psychologically, how do you deal with that? And yeah, I think maybe I should have mentioned journaling it's what has really helped me process it all again. Like some thoughts that are maybe not right on the surface of my brain, when I start journaling, it starts coming out, these questions. So definitely, I think it's such a great tool.
I love going back to that journal and looking at all of the writings that I have, especially of, I mean, Jace, my thing is I have a piece of paper, pen. I'm writing down everything I know about them. Do I need to revisit it to remember? No, but if I write it down, I can remember their name, what they do, and I when I go back to that book, sometimes it's funny because I'll have like a little bit on Jason, you know, like after I met Jason. Okay, Jason, you know, excitable guy. Love, his English is great. He knows how to communicate and be with somebody different level. And then like obviously like little thoughts later, like, oh, well, Jason and I went and did this, or I went and did this, and I saw this. And it's but it's fun to.
Speaking of revisiting, something I want to do now. What's that? Oh, is Jason there?
Okay.
Next clubhouse or whatever gathering dance and so yeah. Go ahead.
No, finish it. Dance and
Superpower. Our superpowers.
Can we also do like greatest weaknesses? Because for me, greatest weaknesses is like I love turning and spinning, but like that's a weakness of mine.
Okay, let's do it. Strengths and weaknesses, or superpowers and superpowers and your kryptonite.
Okay.
Yes.
Superpowers.
Oh, I love it because my those damn turns.
Oh, it's great. Right, dance, but
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write this down. Okay. Okay. Wait. So let's see from. Do you want to add something on, Joshua, and
just
add on what you
were gonna say, and then move on to your part because I want to hear how you have recalibrated yourself.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say something I want to revisit and go back and look into now from history is to find a CCTV recording of Jacob in Paris flailing next to Cindy this vortex, because I've been hearing this story and I feel like it's something I need to see for myself.
It was terrifying.
I need to ask Cindy.
It was like
I'm like
I
does
said,
the video
she was
exist? Did someone archive this?
and I know this is gonna look super goofy.
What did you use?
But like, let me just like illustrate, right? Like, this is Cindy. She's just for me. This was me, just like that's how I look.
This is going out live. This is.
I'm telling you right now, people need the visual because hers was just so graceful and just and for me it was like I was like suffering from like a grand mal seizure or something, which isn't comical. However, it was very like uncontrollable, and that's why I wanted to assimilate those two.
Oh my gosh, we need this footage. Let's get some hacker friends who can dig through the deep web.
Because I want to show people it's like you can start here.
Yeah. No, recalibration for me. I think, as I've already said, right now I think it's a lot on pausing, reflecting, and implementing that change that I need for myself. Because one, I think what this has done for me is make me a better manager for myself and also for maybe dancers if I get to employ or teach them in how to manage their own careers. Because immediately what I'm writing down and noting for myself is what do I need and what do I need to safeguard myself from as a freelance dancer. So parts of it, as I shared earlier, is okay, I need to factor in like during a project, can I negotiate my terms to say that I have if sick days that are compensated for, because that's important as a freelance dancer. If you don't have other safety nets, can I negotiate health insurance during my terms of engagement? So these are things and notes that I'm making for myself, and also what are the kinds of hours that I'm willing to put myself through, which is exactly why I hired a friend to help me, and she's on the manager now. And that's really helped taking off that extra time. If you're engaged in a creative process all day, coming home to do more management work is a lot of stress. Like you think, okay, mind is one thing, body rehearsal the other day. Like we're really integrated wholes. And I think while one is still working, the other is also still very much active. So these are things that I'm trying to really balance out and shift for my future engagements. And something that I realized is knowing is so far from living or doing or embodying this idea, because I know all these things actually. I know how important rest is, but and I even preach it, to my disgrace maybe. I even That's something I really try to implement in my training, in my teaching, and yet here I am with an injury as a result of my overwork, perhaps. And so I really started noticing this huge gap between knowing and actually living, doing, or embodying it. And I think the best way to bridge that gap is to constantly be conscious of it. So I'm really trying to reflect on how to keep that consciousness alive when maybe I'm in the thick of it. And that's part of what I'm processing right now. Psychologically, I think it really helps to be around people who understand the struggle and who also can support you in during this time. And I say that because sometimes you need affirmations to let go. And for me, immediately the hardest thing was I started racing, saying, okay, this is the project that I had going on. Oh no, this is something that's, I don't know, someone paid for this workshop. How do I return the money? Someone, all these things. Oh, I'm working with this person and I'm kind of freaking out. I'm not meeting my end as an employer or employee. So all these things came into my mind, these debates. And maybe I would have taken the wrong choice of just saying, okay, I'll just tone it down, but go ahead anyway. But, someone who understands this field, like friends, they were just like, just don't do it. It's not worth it. Like, I think some myths that I'm debunking through this process is, as performers, even on TV or everywhere, before you enter the industry, you keep hearing this phrase, the show must go on, all of this, but at what cost? And that's something I'm
Hmm.
adding on to, like, the show must go on at the cost of what? And it will not be at the cost of me or my body or my career. So I think that's something I'm trying to put forward as well, is how do I keep myself and my facility as my top priority, as my, as not just as my breadwinner or financial means, but as something I love. This is my passion, and this is something I do not want to nip at the bud too soon. I want to be dancing till I'm very well into my old age. I don't think I will stop at 60 either. I
I
love
was
this. I love
I
what
was
I
just
do.
about
So
to ask that question.
yeah. So I'm like, I'm going all the way. I need to find the most sustainable way to keep this career going. And kind of like what Jason said earlier, um, I was kind of improvising a little bit a few days ago. And I said, okay, what does this mean for my training? Like, does my style change? Does my physical identity change? Because I know that I could rehabilitate, work, and then get back to dancing. But I'm like, is that the best way? What other flavors or what other languages can I emit out? I'm like, is being virtuous that important? How can I create other visual images or visual poetry using my facility rather than just going 100%? And something that I wanted to say earlier, when you guys were talking about giving your 100%, it's that some percent doesn't mean 100% physical energy. It can be 100% with maybe 50% physical capacity, 10% like really wise decision making, another 10% of assessing and processing it. You can be at 100%, but not just physically. You can still be 100% by changing the constituent parts. And I think that's the process where I'm at right now. And I hope I get to share it with you guys, maybe, or you guys help me figure out how to reconstitute that 100%. But
Mm,
yeah, I think there's a lot of rebalancing and renegotiating.
mm, mm. No, that's a okay. That's a wonderful point to kind of bounce off on, like 100% 100% intention, maybe not 100% physicality. I still can be at 100% without like killing yourself on stage, right? And that's going to be a very interesting journey. I think both of us share right now at this point, you, Joshua and I. with with the next few projects that we do carrying this injury as recent as like these few months, how do we then apply this 100%, right? Can we still be
Mhm.
at a 100% without the physicality aspect of it, and does that also translate for other people? Is it perceived the same way? Because I think a lot of people, especially for example in my company right now, we are so physical. We're so physical in the way that we dance and the style. It's a very European, Western European, like Belgian, Brussels kind of aesthetic, where it's just throwing yourself onto the ground, up into the air all the time. If I don't do that at the height or at the virtuosity that I used to do it at, then does that still translate? So I think that's going to be quite intriguing for us uh, to see when we move forward. Um, okay, now the last thing I want to actually point out here is, did any of you I think Jacob, maybe for the example it's not so obvious, but like for Joshua, I wanted to ask you that question. It's like, okay, how long do you actually want to dance into the future? Because you could go down that path of like rehab like crazy, right? Like, I mean, Joshua has things, sorry, Jacob has stuff screwed into his arm. That's incredible. But like do the rehab like crazy, get back, and then fire away for maybe max of like 5 more years, and wear your body up to the point where you can't dance anymore, and then goodbye, transition, right? I think that's not an option for you, I guess, and maybe Jacob
Mhm.
as well.
Definitely not for me. I definitely my expertise and my influence in within dance, the ecosystem of dance in India and abroad actually kind of
Hmm.
panning out and broadening. And I do see myself going more into directions of maybe I want to be a producer, maybe I want to be a director. And I really see this in the near future, not so distant even. But I don't think personally, even if I take on other roles, I will stop dancing myself because it's what I love. And not to toot my own trumpet, I'm freaking good at it. And I derive so much joy and like I love doing things that I'm good at too. Not to be like really brash about it, but it's true for me. I do feel that my understanding, my experience, my engagement does bring out many things, and I value that myself. So I want to keep dancing, and it's very clear in the past 2 weeks that I couldn't dance every day. I don't mean dance intensively, like maybe just a 5 to 10 minute improv, but I move a lot during the day, even if I don't have a rehearsal to go to. And when that option is taken away, I felt actually more tired. I feel like my back is always sore somehow from just sitting or standing. I feel like when I move, there's a lot of lubrication, there's a lot of ease and kind of like moving all the parts and joints, and I actually feel way more tired when I'm not dancing because of the stiffness that enters me.
Hmm.
So
Lethargy
I
almost.
do know that I want to dance, yeah, way 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 into the future, and I'm actually really excited for it because kind of that how to work 100% is I get to know my body more and more, so everything is kind of like primed for efficiency and optimal use. So even if I'm not as virtuosic as me at 25, I know my body more so that I can economize my movement and still do it, execute it, and but use less energy maybe. And I see that now, I do so many things going up and down, widening, like going to the floor, like
Mhm.
with so much more ease and kind of like breathing easily. And I see that as I teach also, because sometimes when I'm teaching, I'll do it with every group. I split up the group into small groups so they can really eat up the space. And I can go like 5 times on the loop, left side, right side, second group, third group, fourth group. And everyone's like, how are you doing this? I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I'm just breathing. It's my body and I know the movement, and I just feel like I will get more and more efficient as I grow older because I'm understanding myself, my body more. So I do think I can dance well into my old age.
Yeah,
I'd like
buddy.
to hold on to that
Oh
belief. I'm just
yeah.
holding on to that faith and belief, and I'm trying to structure my training and my career sustainably to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
holding on to hope for sure.
Uh, I look forward to that actually checking in on each of us 10 years, let's say from now, maybe even 15, and seeing at which level, or at least not level, like frequency, intensity of our dancing. Because, like you said, we can personally dance, we can take it upon ourselves to have our own little dance corner or little trainings, and not necessarily have to do it for money, let's say. I think your potential transition to a producer is equally as exciting, if not even more exciting for me at this point, and also for
Right.
Jacob. Like I can imagine like a multitude of things that he can do and he would do because he's really doing them all right now. So I mean that's something that we share in common. And just to kind of like tie the knot, for me it was a bit different because my recalibration is like, is this a sign almost that I have to do what I preach, right? Because as part of the background dancer, my
Yeah.
mantra is like, okay, transition, like equip yourself with as many skills, right? Do XYZ at the same time, really diversify, really economize a little, and just different things so that like when the time comes and when push comes to shove, you can, which is the best path. And then the injury choice, but to do it, just like do it. So when that other job came of like video creation, came, it's like, oh, that could be my second gig, and like all no solution. Like there's just no choice. Like you can do it. But I was doing what I was preaching. Could this be the moment of like I have to let go of dance because at the time, so much fear. Like when you literally cracked your knee like that, you probably go like, probably the end, right? But I mean, I've seen a lot of sportsmen come back. The guts to have the grit to do that. I'm not sure myself.
Yeah.
So to Joshua and maybe even Jacob, like for me, I have a really weird trajectory. I would actually give myself a cap. I would give myself like extra more years maximum, and I would literally say,
Wow.
I will stop. Like by hook or by crook, I gotta stop at this level. This level, I can do it on my own in the studio, whatever. But professionally, because like I said, like you said, there are so many other things I want to pursue. Everything at the same time. We've already seen
Right.
that it really does take a toll, right? So for me, it's like, okay, 5 more years maybe, and then boom, entrepreneur, producer, whatever, podcaster, doesn't matter, but there has to be a solution there. And I think the injury actually sped that process up. It not sped it up, but you use another word actually, which is letting go, right? That really accelerated that process of accepting and letting go of this idea that being a dancer is the best thing in the world, which it is. But it's also something that it's not worth putting yourself at more danger for, more
Of
risk,
course.
health risk, because now we're enjoying it, we're young, we can recover relatively quickly. But when it comes to like our 40s and 50s, we're gonna really suffer with all the pains and probably no gains, right? So I think this is a nice way to kind of like look at the career of like how are we gonna deal with this in the future. So
Yeah.
this has been really fascinating, boys. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for being so candid, so so sensitive, so all of your experiences, because I mean we haven't talked for a long while, and it's really heartwarming to kind of hear it from your side as well and how you've dealt with it, right? And I think I come out of this stronger, like much more like positive about life and how to come, you know, no matter how hard our tasks are, there are always worse off people around the world. And I'm just like, I saw a friend of mine that day who just had a brain surgery or something, and she's a dancer. I'm like, what the hell? Oh my
What?
god, like some tumor or some I don't know. But anyways, mine is just like, whatever, Jason, suck it up. Like it's nothing, don't be power. Guys, this has been wonderful. We're gonna do that and superpowers for sure. I think that's wonderful. I want to have an episode where we can literally just go remorse. No remorses. I'm gonna bask. I'm going to I'm gonna show off. Like I think it gets to be really fun because
Our
our
superpowers
superpowers for sure just skills that we built over the years that other people would also share. So with much for an ending, let's do another intro again. Short description of who we are, who you guys are. I think your voices here have been super appreciated. Jacob, go ahead. You're muted. You're muted. Go ahead.
You're muted, Jacob.
Jacob, you're muted. This time add in storyteller. You're muted.
This is the drama. this is the post drama. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
One of my air is freaking out.
Oh.
But let me tell you guys, because I started, we do it again the right way. My name is Jacob Caldwell. I'm a storyteller. I'm a dancer. I'm a creator. I'm also the founder of All House Dance Collective. That creates free and accessible dance opportunities over here in the West Coast and far beyond. Aside from that, my day job, my 9 to 5, is as the director and pretty much producer, sole person of the performing arts department within another nonprofit, Del Mar Child and Family Services. We with children from South Central LA and all over, those that are combating disabilities, autism, disabilities, or infrequencies, and really just immersing them to a storytelling environment, because I love performance and I love dance, and sharing that with those that struggle to find their voice. What's better, right? It's fun. So that's what I'm up to right now. And just kind of like Jason said, I'm giving my tattoo at this job. Like, I'm going to do a couple more years, then do just got to finish building this, which is nuts. Go down that hole. You guys get to hear more next time. Over to you, Josh.
Okay, this has been an absolute pleasure talking to you guys again after so long. And also, as we speak of dance and adversities and overcoming, this has been one of the most energizing talks that I've had post injury with other people, and just processing it, talking it through, and also surprising myself with the kind of clarity that has taken place in the past few weeks as I share my thoughts with you guys. So thanks for engaging with me, engaging all together, and listening to my story as well. And I'm Joshua Silo. I am a dancer, and I dabble in multiple fields, choosing what is the best way to express myself, be it photography, visual art, or film. You can check out all my creative endeavors on sailaway.com. I'm also a co-founding member of the 206 Dance Collective based in Bangalore in India, and we're really trying to push boundaries and trying to find sustainable ways of influencing and impacting the dance ecology here. And lastly, I will just be enjoying a few weeks of rest and recovery post my injury. So, not much to update you on for now. I will just say I'll be enjoying my rest.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate this. This has been really fun. And once again, welcome to the Background Dancer. This is your first feature on the podcast.
Whoop whoop.